Just an email at podcast@redhead. Hey, hi, hello. It's Joe Carney, and welcome back to Professionally Unprofessional. This is part 2 of the interview with Brittney from No Bladder Don't Matter, and we are just going to hop right on into it. We've pretty much talked about all of the cancer-related things in the last episode, and if you missed that, it'll be tagged up here in the cards for you. One of these sides. It'll be in one of these sides. You can go back and watch everything that happened last week to get caught up on this week. Don't forget, this is a podcast as well, so you can find everything that happened in the full interview on our podcast channel, which will be linked in the description box for you. Or you can search Redhead Runaway on your favorite streaming service. This week, we jump into a few things that are a bit more delicate. We get to learn about what life after cancer meant for Brittney. This particular episode is going to be edited pretty heavily just because YouTube doesn't allow for certain things to be discussed on camera. So if you would like to hear the full story, please be sure to check out that podcast, or you can sign up for Patreon, where I'll post the entire interview for everybody to see. Before we get into the second part of the interview with Brittney, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment to this channel so you don't miss anything. So without further ado, let's figure out where No Bladder Don't Matter came from.
You know, and I was only at Emory, checked in August 2nd, had surgery the 8th, and it would have happened sooner, but I had contracted sepsis at the first hospital, which is a whole nother bag. But I mean, at Emory, it was, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this test. I mean, like, it was boom, boom, boom from the minute I walked in the door, and I'm so thankful for it.
Well, I mean, you're a case study with them, so they're tracking it.
So look, everything that was going on inside of me thankfully was fairly localized to like my bladder and just the surrounding tissue. But with my age and the severity, what they do if you're going to have a massive surgery like this is they have all hospitals have this, is they have what's called a tumor board, and they usually meet weekly, and they present, you know, whatever doctor has you presents your case to the tumor board and basically says, here's everything that's going on with her. Do you approve for her to have surgery? And as scary as that sounds, it's not terrifying. It's not so much people saying, well, this person gets it, this person doesn't. It's all the smartest people in the room talking about, well, how are you going to approach the surgery? What's the right timing for the surgery? What are you going to do? What do you hope to accomplish? You know, for me, they were like...
So it's the okay, now what board?
Yeah, so... And it's so funny.
You have a sick sense of humor, I'll tell you that much. There's a lot of things in here that you think are funny that I do not think my listeners will.
The funny thing is I've read the transcripts from my presentation at Tumor Board because I have all of my notes. Mm-hmm. And he opens with, Brittney is a pleasant 28-year-old. I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? But sure, I'm a pleasant...
Trying to win him over.
Exactly. I mean, I guess... And, you know, he has told me since then, like, he wanted approval that night for my surgery. Like, he wanted me as far up on the docket as possible. And so he was just basically saying, like, here's this young woman. If we don't do this, she's going to die. Like, can you know, and he's
check yes or no.
Yeah, so it's so funny, like, seeing his whole, like, transcript of his presentation about me and all the things that they discussed, and what determined later that I had a genetic panel, and that, you know, it determined my treatment. It's determined a lot of things, but they ended up taking those lymph nodes. They did a full hysterectomy, but he was able to leave my ovaries, so I wouldn't get thrown into menopause on top of everything else, because the hormone shifts can do some wonky things. At the time, they were thinking I was going to do traditional chemo. So he's like, let's not throw you into menopause on top of all this. So I have my ovaries.
Cancer and menopause. Yeah. Doing great. Checking off that bucket list.
Yeah. So they're there. I wouldn't say, like, my hormones are not normal by any means. Like, it's very weird. And it's not to the point that I'm doing artificial hormones yet. It is a conversation for in the future to help with some other things, but, you know, I have them. It was so weird, though. I think what's so aggravating is, if you don't know my story, I hadn't planned on having kids. It's not a thing that's been put on my heart. It does suck now. Like, I don't have that choice. Like, I don't have the choice now. But even with everything that was going on, like, you got to have surgery now that you might die, blah, blah, blah. We need to take, the reason they want to do the hysterectomy is it's proximity. That's where that cancer is going to jump. And I had to sign off on it and sign off that I, because they were like, well, we can do some egg retrieval while we're in there, but it's more invasive. Like, I get why you sign off on all of that, but also me was like, whatever the heck you want to take out, just take out, so I'm not sick anymore. Mm-hmm. And the doctor, this is what pisses me off, is the doctor actually turned and looked at my husband. He's like, are you okay with that? I was like,
that's a whole nother conversation. Ooh,
he
that's a
doesn't
whole
have a voice in this.
Yeah, he doesn't get a say.
No, like,
I have the ovaries. I make the decisions. So now everything's out. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, it has almost been a year since diagnosis. We're a few months short.
Yeah. So
where are we now? What are we doing now?
So tomorrow will be 8 months since I had my surgery.
Okay.
And that's more of a pivotal date for me because that's when the physical changes happen. And we're soon to be 8 months from diagnosis. So it's still, for me, it feels like a lifetime ago sometimes. Like, it feels like this has been the longest process ever. And then today when I looked down to make a social media post, I was like, oh, it's only been 8 months. It's weird. So it took about 6 months to recover from surgery. I wouldn't say that
like physically or emotionally?
Physically.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that that's normal or unnormal for my surgery. I had been cut open. I struggled so much with nutrition post-op because of everything that had happened and the antibiotics I was on. I lost 20 pounds in a month. If you look at me now, I'm sitting right at like 165, which is a little heavy for my height, but I look pretty good right now. I got down to like 119, which, even though I'm a petite person, my build, that is tiny.
Yeah.
And there's
and you were a gymnast and a dancer, so that's tiny.
Like, I lost so much muscle mass. I mean, like, I would have to take like sweaters and stuff and put them on a chair to sit on because I had no meat on me.
It just hurt.
I was all bones. So I was malnourished, just going through it. I didn't turn a corner until Thanksgiving. So late November, that was when I finally got off pain medication. It took a couple months to be able to get off of that, to be able to walk straight. I walked leaning forward for a long time because, my core had been compromised, and you don't realize how much you use your abs just to sit up. So
trust me, I've learned. With my herniated disc, I have learned.
As soon as any of that gets compromised, you're like, oh, holy cow. So it took several months to be able to walk any type of distance. Like, to be able to go grocery shopping was huge. I remember the first time I went grocery shopping by myself in December, I was like, oh my gosh, I actually made it throughout the whole store and I didn't have to stop. I was like, what in the world? And I didn't start being able to work out in like the traditional sense until February, just about. I was able to start back at work in January, which has been interesting. It was one thing to be home and then launch my website, like talk about everything that was going on my own terms. Like, it was just me making announcements and making commentary, but having, when I am at work, there's someone who brings this up at least once a day. Like, I feel like I talk about cancer all day at work. Like, guys, like, at the end of the day, I'm a normal person, but at the same time, there's situations where I have to remind people where there's things I can't do. Like I work for the state, so I travel all over the state. I have 65 state parks. They're everywhere. They're all corners of Georgia. And I used to be able to just pick up and go to a park, like driving to a park 2 hours away, like sure, whatever. Well, now with my ostomy, I can't do that. With it being a direct line to your kidney and just how your body functions, like you actually create more urine than you probably would as a normal person. So I probably empty it like every 30 minutes, which just would make a drive really frustrating. So what I have, so when I travel for treatment, I have a leg bag or a night bag, which is basically a contained system that has tubing that I can connect to my ostomy. And like when I'm driving, I put it under the driver's seat. So I mean, it's this little tube that like goes between my legs and goes under the seat. Which is kind of nice because I can do, as long as that doesn't fill up, I can go without having to stop, which is kind of nice. But
I'm sure it makes other flights difficult and things like that.
That's going to be interesting. That's probably one of the things like I'm most nervous for. I have heard stories about TSA being a little interesting with ostomies.
I mean, it's a medical issue.
Yeah,
what do you want me to do?
Yeah. I mean, you have to declare that you have it before you go into the x-ray machine because of how it shows up. I've heard a lot of people, just because of the products that we use on ostomy care, it'll flag as like explosives and stuff.
Because it's a bag, we get it.
You know, it's all that stuff. And I've heard a couple horror stories where they like want to see your bag, but it's kind of like a prosthetic leg, and you know, any other medical device, they're not allowed to see it, they're not allowed to touch it. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But it makes, you know, travel interesting, but I've just taken it as, you know, all right, well, let's try this. Let's see how this works. And you take it as it comes.
The main thing you said when you were like, I have cancer, I don't want to die, is that people can't live a normal life, which obviously you can't do now. Do you feel that you can still live a full life? Like your life to the fullest? What things are you doing that allow you to live and learn from what you're doing?
So I think I operate at like 90% normal.
That's pretty high considering everything you've been through.
I don't get fatigued. I feel pretty good. I don't have any pain. If you've known me throughout all this and you've seen any of my social media, like I soapbox for not letting ostomy hold you back. Like my cancer, I don't really fuss with anymore. We're doing what we do. I go for treatment once a month. It's working. I don't really think about the cancer as much because it's there. It's in my body. I can't see it. The ostomy, that's kind of been my soapbox. And in a lot of the support groups I'm in and the people I talk to and the women who have gotten it, you know, they tell you they feel disgusting. They hate it. It's a huge life change. It's something you have to get used to. I mean, I look at it the same way as if you have to wear a prosthetic leg or, you know, you have a cochlear implant. It's an adjustment. It's a thing. It's a foreign thing on your body. So a lot of my life has revolved around making my ostomy work for me. And I feel like within the last like 2 months or so, I feel like I've conquered my ostomy. Like,
well, you post videos of it. You have a whole little mini platform of this is what I'm going through. Let's talk about it. Let's see.
Yeah, and so the ostomy was more of my mental struggle more than anything. Like once I got over, you know, we'll all die someday and I'll probably live a shorter life because of my cancer. Like once I got over that, I then had to fight the mental battle of, oh my God, I have an ostomy and this isn't going away. This is not a temporary thing. Like that's there for the rest of my life. So there's been a mental struggle with that. And I feel like, and this is where I say I'm at 90% because I have no physical limitations. I do what I want. I'm working out. I can eat what I want. Like I'm living life as normally as possible. And when it comes to like emptying my ostomy and changing it, it's so like routine for me now. Like for me to like pull my bag off, put a new one on, it's like brushing my teeth. Like it's just something I don't even think about anymore. It's like, oh, it's just another bodily function. It is what it is. But then all of that comes up to a wall. Like I'm good until I get to a wall. And there are some permanent things from the surgery that I feel like I can't get to that 100% now. When they took the bladder out, that shortened everything even more. And
going back to the reference, she's 5'1", y'all.
I'm tiny as it is.
She's little.
I'm tiny as it is, and not to get graphic, my husband's 5'9". Let's just leave it at that. So, I'm little, he's big guy. But, no one told me before my surgery what, just from a hysterectomy standpoint, what that does to your internal workings. They definitely didn't tell me, hey, when we take your bladder out, that's gonna, cause some issues too. Like, obviously they were like, we want to save your life. They weren't thinking about preserving sexual function. I didn't find out, have an inkling that this was gonna be an issue until like I had 1 week after surgery. I had a post-op follow-up where, they checked my surgical site and everything. And my surgeon said, just so you know, you're going to be a little bit smaller now. And like, I'm like, huh? What do you mean smaller now? Like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're going to be smaller now. I was like, okay, still, this is a week after surgery.
You're hearing the words, but it's not registering.
I'm like, whatever. It probably wasn't. I honestly didn't know that this was going to be an issue until I saw someone post about it in one of the support groups that I'm in that's in for women who have bladder cancer. And there's an organization in the UK that's like spearheading how to help women, with sexual dysfunction post-op. And when I saw that post, I was like, no, that's what they mean. I was like, what do you mean?
It all clicked.
I was like, what do you mean how small? Because obviously you're healing. I'm not thinking about any kind of intimacy with my husband.
Right.
I'm like, I don't want you to touch me. I'm like, I need to heal. I'm trying to get better. And so it dawned on me. And I was like, oh shit. To say that hurt more than like just, because I had been for a while, I've been working up to like, okay, how can I feel pretty with my ostomy? Because it's one thing for me to wear clothes. Like, you don't see this when I have clothes on, but I'm like, what do you do when you want to be intimate? Like, how do you make it sexy? Yeah, like how do you make it sexy, but also like just the physics of it. Like, okay, like you have to contain it. You don't want the bag flopping around. Like, it's just a whole thing.
Thank you for that mental image. That was great.
Hey. It's a thing in the ostomy world. I'd already gotten through that battle of like, okay, I could handle like, at this point, like I was just starting to gain weight and I was kind of like feeling good. I'm like, okay, I'm like, well, fuck, I can't do
Strips
anything
you down to
now.
square one.
And it felt so dehumanizing, and especially only being just over a year into marriage, I'm like, how do you tell your husband, hey, I don't know that we can ever be intimate traditionally again? And I get that in the grand scheme of things. Like, my mom tries to joke, which this will sound weird to some people. I tell my mom this, but
she's your best friend. Who cares?
She's seen everything now. I mean, she went through this with me, and she's like, oh, at some point you guys aren't even going to look at each other. You guys are going to think you're gross. I'm like, I get that's like when you're old. Like, I'm 28 and I'm still like a newlywed. Like, what the hell? I'm like, this sucks. So that's kind of where my wall is right now. Like, everything in my outside life is pretty stinking normal. It's like, once I come into my bedroom, okay, like, how does this work now? And, obviously there's ways around it, but that's just...
Yeah, but in grand scheme of thing, ain't what you're thinking about all the way through when you're dealing with...
Yeah, and an intimacy like that is a very human thing. Like, it's a desire we all have. It's
one of the human functions.
I mean, it's part of life. And, thankfully, the oncologist I have now, like, she's been incredible with giving me all these recommendations, like all these things that I can do. And she's like, you can make it better. That's been hard. And then there's just the aspect of I have ovaries, but I don't produce a whole lot of hormones, so drive isn't there. So like, you know, it's like, okay, we're good. And then you go to bed at night and I'm just like, okay, I have no drive. I can't really do a whole lot. Like it's been hard and it's affected our marriage a good bit. Thankfully I have probably the most patient husband in the world who works through
Shout
all
out
of it.
Justin.
Yes. You know, like he has been through it with me. Cancer takes so much from you, and I feel like, you know, it took so much from me. It took, you know, the choice of being able to have kids. I have a huge scar now. I have my ostomy. It's changed, you know, how I live my life. And then on top of that, it takes, you know, a level of intimacy out of my marriage. And that's hard. That's really hard to wrap my brain around sometimes. It's like, come on. Like, how much more are you going to take? I remember thinking that when I found out all of this stuff was going on, I was like, how much more can it take? Like, seriously, can we stop? Like, don't take any more. So that's kind of the last barrier I'm working through, is regaining and figuring out what that aspect of my life looks like. And I feel like if I can find a healthy place there, I'll feel like, okay, it's okay that this is my reality, because I have found, you know, a hack for this, a workaround for this. You know, I've figured out how to handle each little piece of this diagnosis. You know, if I can get that last little bit figured out, it's like, okay, I can handle this.
That's where we're going to stop this week. Thank you so much to Brittney from No Bladder Don't Matter for sharing her story with us. And if you would like to see everything that Brittney has to offer, be sure to check out her website, which will be linked in the description below. If you like what we do here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on our post. It really does help us know what content you enjoy seeing. And be sure to sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/Redhead Runaway. I don't think I'm gonna have this, man. Oh, here we go. I was like a 3 for Abby. She's making me rate them. Fuck, English is hard.